Ups and downs are part of any long trip. We hiked up and down today in Zion National Park and drove along roads winding through stunning and weird scenery. And then we had a mishap at our motel and had to make a mad dash for an emergency room. It was a day of triumphs and of trials for this road trip. We checked out of the hotel in St. George, Utah, and were on the road before 7 a.m. on our way to Zion National Park. A Sunday morning in early June, just after schools let out for the summer in Utah. I assumed the park would be packed and there'd be no parking unless we got there very early. The drive was captivating even before Zion. It supports my theory, not that I'd really know, that most national parks are at their best in the very early hours of the morning. I simultaneously drove along in awed silence and fretted about crowds in Zion. We didn't even stop for photos at the sign, but not too many people at the gate, and as it turns out there was still plenty of parking. We even got a space under a tree. The forecast was for 100-degree temperatures. Zion is similar to the other places we've been seeing lately. It's a bunch of layers of rock eroded by a river, yielding wondrous cliffs and peaks and very twisted geology. The thing about Zion National Park is that the main road in is closed to regular vehicles during the busy season, and you have to take shuttle buses to various spots in the canyon. You feel a little like cattle being herded back and forth, but it does keep the human impact on the terrain down. The first bus ride was indeed standing room only, and I don't know where everyone was going, but hardly anyone else got off where we did, at a place called the Big Bend. This magnificent, high, curved wall sits in front of the prominent Great White Throne, which juts out over it. Also here you can go right to the edge of the Virgin River, the humble little waterway that created all of this. The water, rare here in the middle of a vast desert, sparkles and shows off some bluish-green hues, contrasting with the mostly orange and green landscapes around it. Hardly anyone was on the next bus, which took us back to a stop called the Grotto. There are various activities you can choose in Zion, and we wanted to hike the Emerald Pools route, which starts here. Time to finally use those hiking poles we got way back on day 2. The Emerald Pools hike starts on a bridge over the Virgin River and takes you to 3 pools of water, lower, middle, and upper. A lot of people only go to the lower, but we wanted to see all of them. The trail was dusty and very orange, and it was pretty warm, but not overbearing. There is frequent shade. You're constantly gaining and losing elevation over the 3 miles round trip to the top. I didn't even use my hiking poles. To be honest, to this day I don't really know what the point of them is. Maybe you have to be a more serious hiker to see the benefit. I just had fun negotiating the steps and the rocks and occasionally walking by a sweeping view of the canyon to one side. At one point we passed a girl who was listening to music on her phone, the song Anytime at All by the Beatles. I got it stuck in my head the rest of the hike. Eventually we made it, the upper pool. A few others were there, sitting and resting and gazing at the clear desert water and the sheer cliffs overhead. My blood sugar was 166, great for a day of hiking. I ate a cereal bar to bring it up even more, since significant exercise always pulls blood sugars down. And I made a new friend, too. At first this was all very amusing, but this guy took not being shy a little too far. "I've got no food for you, go away." "Oh, don't be like that. I'm sorry." The lower down we went, the hotter it got, but it was still not boiling. Still, by the time we got to the bottom, we needed a rest. We found a spot under a huge tree for a picnic outside something called Zion Lodge. Blood sugar was higher now, pretty much where I was aiming at. We ate the sandwiches I made last night and listened as a group behind us stood in a circle, singing Americana-type songs. "God Bless America," "Grand Old Flag," "This Land Is Your Land," stuff like that. Got the Beatles out of my head, I guess. The car was indeed cool under the tree, and we went to see a road in Zion that you can drive on, the Zion Mount Carmel Highway. It sure looked promising on the map, if super curvy roads are your thing. They're definitely mine. This was our last view of Zion Canyon. After a mile-long tunnel, you pop out into another part of the park with very different and unusual terrain. Here, on the east side of Zion, the scale of the rock formations is smaller, but the folds and wrinkles and striations are far more complex. Each sloping hill looks like giant combs have been repeatedly raked over its surface. And we finally got the opportunity on the way out to get our sign photos. After all that, it was a pleasant and uneventful drive to the small town of Panguitch, Utah. It seemed like a groovy old west sort of place, but things did not go well for us here. So here's what happened. We were staying at the Briceway Motel. At one point we walked into the office for something, and the heavy metal and glass door banged into the back of Masayo's foot. She fell to the ground in pain, bleeding badly. I realized we needed urgent care. Although it was Sunday afternoon in a tiny rural town in Utah, there was an emergency room about 2 minutes away. We drove there, not exactly obeying every traffic rule, and they put stitches in her foot and wrapped it up. We were back home within an hour of the incident. I explained the situation to the owner, and he said he wouldn't charge us for the room. How about the travel gods offsetting the cost of the Grand Canyon lodges in kind of a violent way? The rest of the evening was a blur. Masayo, of course, rested and put on a brave face. I went across the road to do laundry, dropping clothing in the street as I went and dodging cars to pick it back up. I went back to check on Masayo, and then went to get the laundry 45 minutes later and realized I'd forgotten to add soap. So I did the laundry again. And then I found dinner nearby, picked up the actually clean laundry, and we finished out our frantic day with Subway. And a beer for me, which for some reason I was able to buy here in Utah on a Sunday. We didn't know how this injury would affect the trip, if at all, but for now the plan is still to get up early tomorrow and drive to Bryce Canyon National Park. Cautiously optimistic and drained, we fell asleep in what is, at the end of the day, a nice and quiet little town situated between some amazing road trip destinations. Tomorrow we do indeed make it to Bryce Canyon and get to see possibly the most unique scenery on the whole trip. Masayo takes it easy with her foot, of course, and we find a campsite inside the park for the night with some curious neighbors.